I'm always curious about expanding my mindset, which is thinking bigger, right? Am I really going for, and for me, by the way, the root of that for me is tapping into my desires, right? What do I really want? And I've been working on a body of work called desire intelligence, which is really understanding like different desires that we have, like a little bit like emotional intelligence, right? Being able to name and identify the desires and really understanding those ones that are kind of fleeting, nice to have.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
When you think about mindset, do you think that that's just a bunch of hooey, that you don't need to pay attention to the way you think, the way you perceive the world, the way you see things? Well, mindset to me has been a very powerful game changer inside my own world as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a father, as a husband. In fact, mindset is probably 90% of the results I've gotten from all of the things I've done in my life. This is good and bad. Well, when you think about mindset, I want you to think about this one phrase. You must work harder on yourself than you do on your business. I think Jim Rohn said that or something similar. But I share all this with you because today we're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about really what does it take for you as a leader to shift your mindset. Some of the key elements inside that with my special guest today, Vanessa Shaw. Vanessa is an old friend of mine. I say old, but she's amazingly beautiful and she's incredibly powerful at what she does. I had her come on here to talk about mindset because this is one of her areas of specialty. It is something I do, but I didn't want this to be a solo episode. So I use a little bit of my insight and knowledge and experience I have with coaching CEOs of the Inc. 5000. But I share this with Vanessa so that we get to have a really different kind of conversation to help you grow as a leader, help you understand what's getting in your way, and help you create more power and more clarity in who you're being to be the leader that your team craves. All of this is just for you. Now, here's my friend and incredible coach, Vanessa Shaw. Hey, Vanessa, how are you?
Hey, I am good. Delighted to be here, Gene.
Well, you and I have been friends for ages. We went through a coaching program together where we were all leveling up. This was about 5 or 6 years ago, right?
It was longer than that. I know, it's scary. Like the time goes quickly, but it was at least 7 years ago. It was when I was first in the States, so that's when it was.
Well, you have been coaching people in high performance and helping entrepreneurs really try to understand what's holding them back from the success they create. Over the last 4 or 5 years, what have been the biggest things that you have seen that holds people back from being stronger leaders and the entrepreneurs that they really want to be?
Like one thing, or should we start with the whole shopping list? Right?
Let's go with 1 or 2 things that you think just really just cornerstones to who they are.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we've been really looking at and dialing in with a lot of our clients is I think as people have this misconception that as they grow, like growth in business means they kind of have to take on just more and more and more, which is actually a corporate mindset, right? Corporate mindset is you just start to put in the hours, you work hard. Of course, you're building out teams, right? And you're delegating and all of those good things. But there's definitely that mindset in corporate that, you're supposed to take on more, juggle more, like more responsibility, more, more of a burden, which frankly was a lot of the clients when I was working in Europe would come to me just feeling bogged down with everything. And so what we're really working with our clients on is this whole shift. They kind of come oftentimes with that, not realizing that there's this unconscious pattern that I've got to do it all. And it's all about taking on more complexity, kind of wearing more hats, more responsibility. And we're saying, actually, what if it was less? What if leadership was like, we're going to really reverse that model. And instead of taking on more of stuff, frankly, that you're tired of, that, doesn't light you up anymore, the stuff that helped get you to this point today because you had to do it, especially in the entrepreneurial world, but like it's not in your zone of genius. What if you were no longer doing that stuff? And we started to focus on a lot of the things that you're tolerating because you think you need to keep doing them, right? But they're actually really draining energy from you. And B, what if we start to really hone in on what is your zone of genius that only you can do? And the zone of genius is always, always, always identified by, massive flood of energy, right? It's where we're really passionate, and it's that area that we can, dedicate a lot of time and energy. And we can frankly imagine dedicating, years to really honing and building that level of mastery. And that's where we've been putting a lot of our focus. It's getting phenomenal results with our clients. And I would say the end is when they come in new, there's that like skepticism, like, hang on a minute, like, really, like that could work, and then oftentimes, Jean, I'm sure you've seen this as well with your clients as well, it's like they kind of get in, they like the idea that could work, and I know that it's working when they start to come back with the questions of I've got free time and energy now, I'm not even sure what to do with it, right? Because they've been used to being so like frenetic and frazzled and busy and back to back and overscheduled and overwhelmed and stretched in multiple directions, that now all of a sudden they're like, okay, this is new, but like this is very unfamiliar. It's actually scarier territory than the overscheduled and like super, super busy.
I totally see that too, because when they're overscheduled, they feel like they're contributing in a way that's what they're used to, and they're in control because they're in all the meetings.
Yeah.
But when they don't know what to do, because I've had a lot of conversations over this last month about optimizing your time as a CEO. In fact, we've done a whole series of how do you optimize your time? But I really appreciate you bringing that up here, Vanessa. I want to dive into something you said that just put a spotlight on this tolerations, because a lot of people don't understand that they are tolerating something and what impact that has around their leadership and around how they're impacting others.
Yeah,
so what is tolerating?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wrote a book on it, right, called The $1 Million Question. And I'll, kind of give the background to why that was even the $1 million question. I mean, again, you've known me for years. You knew me in the time when I was running live events, with 150 business owners in a room and, teaching from the stage. And I was teaching this concept of, when, again, we think about, I like the metaphor of this, like we think about wanting to climb a massive mountain. Like, let's think about Kilimanjaro, because actually one of our clients set it as a goal and did it a couple of years ago. But like, you climb Kilimanjaro, I mean, that you're going to be going through, lots of different climates and lots of challenges on the way, and all of the altitude, challenges you have to deal with. But you've got to really think about, do you want to take the bare minimum to the top of the mountain and like those the essentials that are going to get you there, or do you want to be carrying like multiple backpacks filled with tons of junk and the kind of like, well, just in case stuff, right? That you're going to be so weighed down by the backpack of climbing up to the mountain. So think about that as a metaphor. I was running an event and was teaching around that. Now, kind of think about, the mountain is like the mountain of your dreams and desires, right? That you really want to get to the top of. And I was teaching this, and in the break, a doctor, very well-known doctor, and she's nationally recognized, top doc here in Phoenix, comes up to me in the break, and she has scribbled on a piece of paper, and she says, oh my gosh, I went through that process of really understanding what I was tolerating in the business. But where I was taking it was putting a dollar amount to the tolerations, like an emotional, cost, and then a financial cost. Like, what's it really doing, like weighing you down? And she said, I've just done the math on this, and I am tolerating not taking a decision that I really want to make in my business. And I'm fearful of what other people will say. She was particularly fearful, especially in the medical world, of actually peers. What would other doctors say? And what she really wanted to be doing, kind of on the other side of what she was tolerating, was she wanted to move her practice from insurance-based to concierge. And she's a very well-known functional doctor here, functional medicine. So looking at root cause and, not looking at, just prescriptions and everything that's kind of solving, health issues. But she said, we don't get to do, I'm tolerating not doing our best work because of A, the insurance system that we're bound by, and B, then the, worrying about, what other people would think, and a backlash from the medical profession. And she said, I've done the math on this and it's $1 million. And basically she says, I want to hire you to flip, our medical practice. Hence the $1 million question, because it really came from somebody going through that exercise, and we worked together to completely transform her practice. But coming back to what you said, there's tolerations that we'll know on a surface level, right? Just it's back to looking at where are you irritated, where are you frustrated, like where are you like getting those negative, vibes, energy from. Oftentimes, especially when it's happening many times, right, over a period of time, we're tolerating something. So classics can be team members that are underperforming, right? We're tolerating, wearing too many hats. We're tolerating not hitting those financial goals. So if we kind of look at where our energy is, most times I can find a toleration. Now, surface level is one thing, right, Jean? And, kind of easier to find. But then I really work with our clients to say, like, let's dig deeper. You start to build the muscle of recognizing them at the surface level. But what are some other things that you don't even kind of realize where your energy is low? And there's possibly, right, a toleration there. And it's like the dripping tap, right? It's like slow drip that we no longer notice. We just get like, blinded to until somebody points it out and we're like, ugh. So we kind of got to look at it through like what's draining our energy. And then I often, I'll ask my clients, well, let's just imagine, we've got a process for helping them kind of, understand what's keeping them stuck in the toleration. But first and foremost, I'll go to, well, let's just imagine that you were no longer tolerating that. Like we've just solved it. Like, let's not even worry about how for now, but that thing you're no longer tolerating. And absolutely 100% of the time, 100% of the time, the answer is always this release of energy, right? Oh my gosh, like that would be amazing. I'd have time for this. I'd be more creative. I'd be no longer worrying about it. My anxiety would go down. I mean, it's always right that the on the other side of tolerations is this new energy that we can use to take the business to the next level. So that's why I always start with, like, let's look at, not what you want, but like, let's look at what you're tolerating, because that's going to be like the unconscious brake that you keep putting your foot on that stops you getting what you want. And as I say, we kind of, go through a whole process of that. So now we do that on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis. Funny side story, Jean, is I wrote the book and then discovered, not really funny, but again, you would know this, right? Discovered a whole host of my own tolerations as I was diving into writing the book. And it was like, oh, okay, now, it's not surprising that we'd have like a list of things, personal and business. And then we start to kind of strategically work through them.
Now, hold on for a second. Vanessa just talked about what is draining our energy. Have you ever sat down to think about what drains your energy, what pulls away from the energy that you have? Well, identifying what's pulling away that energy is one way that you can lift your energy, because when you learn to let go of those things that drain you, you can play life at a different level. When I had to let go of certain things around my business and I just didn't want to do, I ended up giving them and delegating them to my team, which is the right thing to do as we grow our businesses. But it was freeing. It was lifting and giving me energy. And the same thing in your business. But here's the thing. It's not a one-time thing. It's something you do continuously. You're always identifying what's draining your energy, and you want to make sure that you can learn to let go of that and learn to feel it and really experience the results behind it when you let go, so that it becomes easier the next time. Now, I look for things to let go of, give my team and empower them in new ways. Just a little bit of a commentary to share with you what draining your energy is and how you can do it for yourself and the impact it's going to have. Now back to Vanessa. A lot of people say that the best book that you'll ever read is the one you write, because you have to take your messages and really try to understand them and really looking hard into your life. I can remember writing chapters in my book and coming home crying.
Yeah.
It's not normal. Like, this is not something I do on a regular basis. It's not because I'm too strong of a man. I mean, I'll cry in any movie that has, or This Is Us. It tears me apart. But, but I would just the work that it took to be able to get that message out there. So that being said, Vanessa, one of the reasons I'm having you on the show here is because, not just because you're a great coach, because you opened up in social media about you working on yourself and working on some of the things that are going on, not just your business strategy pivot, but you really work on your own mindset. How is it that you see that you need to work on your own mindset?
So for me, it's just continual, right? I'm constantly looking. And by the way, a lot of this stuff we can't do just by ourselves, right? Like a little bit, I mean, you're a guy, Gene, so perhaps you can cut your own hair. But right, I've got long hair. Like I always say to people, like, don't ever try and cut your own hair, especially the back of it. And it's like hair like mine, right? Same thing as being a coach. It's really difficult to see this stuff for ourselves. Although, of course, I self-coach. I've been a coach for nearly 2 decades now, right? So at least I'll start there. But I'm always curious about expanding my mindset, which is thinking bigger, right? Am I really going for? And for me, by the way, the root of that for me is tapping into my desires, right? What do I really want? And I've been working on a body of work called desire intelligence, which is really understanding like different desires that we have, like a little bit like emotional intelligence, right? Being able to name and identify the desires and really understanding those ones that are kind of fleeting, nice to have, right? I use the example for me that if somebody gave me a Tesla, I know we were talking about nice cars just before, right? If somebody offered me a Tesla, like I'd totally take it, right? I'm personally not motivated to put in the effort for a Tesla, right? It's just not my thing. So for me, that would be like a fairy godmother desire. Like wave a magic wand and give it to me. Sure, that would be nice, but I'm not willing to put in the effort. But then there's other things where I tap into those desires and look at, right, am I willing to do the work and put in the effort? Now, when we start to really tap into those desires of what we really want, I think is the place for then kind of that mindset to come in, right? Of, is this really possible? Possibly those demons of, who do I think I am? Do I find myself, making excuses of I'm too busy, I haven't got time, or I need to learn something more about that, right? Those can be some of kind of my go-tos. And so understanding where I'm going to, get in my own way. In my own way means the, expression of those desires that I really want to be bringing about in the world. So I think, expanding that mindset is always, important. And for me, it's not just the thinking. I think mindset is one of those things that so many people think of it as kind of positive rah-rah thinking. Like, you can do it, Jean, go for it, right? That's all it took, right? We'd all be a lot more successful. But for me, it's understanding, where, as I say, I'm kind of constraining myself in my thinking, but it's digging deeper into my emotional well-being. Emotion is what drives so much of our mindset and how we perceive the world. So if we're only working at the cognitive level, thinking level, and we, think we think that we're improving mindset, but yet we actually haven't expanded, let's say, our emotional repertoire, understanding. And for me, this is really important as leaders, because as leaders, we set the temperature for everything in our organizations, whether we like to admit that or not, right? And it comes a lot from our emotional well-being. So for me, it's about understanding that the emotional repertoire. Do I have the ability to change and transform my emotions when I know that they are not serving me, right? And they're not going to lead to good outcomes, right? And be able to bring about that behavioral change. And then for me, the whole piece of mindset is around that beingness, right? Who am I being? Who am I really showing up as in the world? Am I showing up as the woman, right, that's required, the leader that's, my vision requires of me? So for me, mindset is, as I say, more than that thinking. It's an interesting one now, Jean, for me. It's one of those, it's so entrenched in who I am and how I show up in the world, that it's kind of like saying, what does air look like around you, right? Because it's just become very habitual. And it serves me really well, because it always gives me places, right, to look, to kind of check in with myself, and to really do those check-ins with myself first, so that I can lead more effectively.
Now, hold on. Vanessa just said something really incredible. She put a question out there. Who do I think I am? I've been thinking about that question a lot as it relates to serving you, the founders and CEOs of fast growth companies. Who do I think I am? Well, the way I've done this and the way I've overcome any inner critic or any negative voice that kind of comes up when I'm trying to step out and do something bigger than what I've done before is by going back and really looking at what have I accomplished? Who am I? I have built multiple businesses to multi-million dollars. I've created jobs for 100 people plus. I've created opportunities in the marketplace. I've made an impact in people's lives. I've grown multiple businesses, probably 6 over $10 million. I've had another 10 businesses I've worked with that have grown just $10 million in a year. Now, why do I share this with you? It's not because I'm trying to brag, but it's because I've been doing this every day where I write down all the things that I am. I've been the person who's done that. I own the fact that I have made these kind of results and this impact. And that gives me the strength to do something bigger and better than ever before. This one exercise of who do I think I am, and you actually writing it out, all the things that you've accomplished, looking back, will give you some strength, because I know if you're listening to this, you're already successful, you've already accomplished a lot, and so you've got a lot to write down. And that will give you the recall you need, and remind yourself that if you want to do something bigger and better than ever before, and you want to realize your dream, that you can do that because you are the person that can make these things happen. I share this with you because I want you to be able to learn the tips and tricks and the hacks to be a stronger leader, to be the best leader you can be. Now, back to the interview with Vanessa. Vanessa, we've been talking a lot about mindset, and there's been a word that you've been dancing around, but you haven't said this, and maybe it's not a part of your style of coaching. It is a part of mine, but the sense of identity. I think a lot of leaders work really hard to reach a certain level of, authority and influence and success within their companies. And then they think they can coast, or they think that okay, well, I've made it, arrived. Do you work with identity much with your clients?
Totally. I was just kind of avoiding using that word here because sometimes people don't get what it really means, right? And absolutely. So for me, in a way, everything that I was talking about there is absolutely linked to identity. And as you all know, through the work that you do, we can never outperform our own identity. So for me, that when I'm looking at that mindset and as I say, the emotional, kind of emotional agility, if we like, and kind of that beingness, it's all about expanding my version of self, expanding, who I am being, who I see myself to be, who I want to be, who I want to be proud of in the world, right? Expanding that identity so that all of those other things become easier. Not easy, because it's just not the way it works, but they certainly become easier when we're really leading with that version of self that's required to fulfill on, dreams, desires, and goals.
I want to wrap this up with, I don't know what you do with your clients. I know what I do with mine when I know that there's an identity shift that's needed. I could share that with us and we could talk about it, but I'd rather you just kind of share with us. I know that there's a fight because they fought hard to reach a new identity wherever they are. Let's say the company's doing $10 million. They fought hard to get to that place, but then in order to get 20 million or hit 50 million, that identity in my world has to shift.
Yep.
How do you get people to start to make that shift in your practice?
I know, that's such a great question. And not necessarily, it's not that, again, qualify this with it's not necessarily a one and done, but right, as you know, right, it's obviously an iterative process. But oftentimes it really is that what do you need to, it's like, what do you most need to let go of in order to get to the next level, right? Is the, which funny enough, the person that wrote the foreword to my book actually used my own coaching against me. And when I was in a funk at one point, because I was holding on so tightly, right, to something that I had created. And he said, I remember a very great coach that said to me, you need to let go to grow. Russ was his name. He runs a mega company nowadays. I was like, and I just knew that he'd got me right in the heart of, I was holding on to some things too tightly that were wrapped up in my own identity. So asking ourselves at that point, like, really, what do I really need to let go of right now? And I honestly find that what it is, Jean, and I'm sure you find the same thing, is we're overly attached to everything that we've worked so hard to create. Mm-hmm. And that was, I witnessed it firsthand for myself. I mean, we did a pivot in our business before pivoting was fashionable, like November of 2019. And I realized that it was like, oh my gosh, my identity was caught up in this. I didn't realize it until somebody called me out on it. And we hold on to all of those things kind of so tightly as we're growing that it's like, well, I got to 10 million and I've worked so hard and like my whole identity is tied up in this, instead of working on, like, what do we need to let go of that would actually make the 20 million a lot easier, right? More joyful, more fulfilling, more sustaining. And if we've got things, tied up in our identity of like working hard, driving bottom line results, or, being the last in the office, or wearing all of those hats, or knowing everything, all of those things that can come into play, it's going to make getting to that next level really difficult.
You have really expanded my own mind about what you're doing. I appreciate you sharing, Vanessa, about how you're engaging others in different levels of thinking and the tools that you're using and sharing with the audience today that want to continue their growth. So thanks for being here.
It was so much fun. Always good to reconnect with you, Gene.
Well, what a powerful episode here. I love talking about mindset because it has changed the way I operate in the world. Let me give you an example. When I was an entrepreneur running my business from 0 to 6 million in about 3 years, I was pushing the limits of what I could believe. I actually didn't have many limits in the very beginning because I didn't think I could fail. I thought I was smart. I thought I could execute on this. It was a great time to start my business. And so 0 to 6 million was pretty easy. But then my mindset shifted somehow. When I had something to lose, I started playing not to lose. And that was actually my downfall, was the shift I had in not playing to win. Now, you may think this is a small thing, but I can tell you firsthand that I thought about the innovations my company needed, but I wasn't willing to do that. I didn't have the courage and the confidence in myself and what was really going on inside this world, even though I could see it as clear as day. I could see the opportunity, but I wouldn't let myself do it. I ended up losing everything. You probably know my story if you followed me. If you haven't, I lost $3 million in one day and on a bad business deal with my best friend. Now, I'm not here to complain about this whatsoever because it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I was able to look at myself and reframe how I would rebuild my life. And I love what I do now. Coaching founder CEOs, helping them with their mindset, helping them with their identity, helping them truly become the strongest and the best leaders they can be, to be more effective, to drive more impact and more influence. That is what I do, and it's what I do day in and day out. If you have any questions about how you're growing and transforming, make sure you reach out to me, gene@genehammett.com. When you think about growth and you think about leadership, you think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.